Usually just let it flow.
Whatever you want.
I don't want to call you the wrong name. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Alliance Group podcast. And we have a very special guest, actually, the newest member of the Alliance Group staff, our brand new Annuity Marketing Ambassador, Mr. Jared Weiss, all the way from Des Moines, Iowa, where you live. Jared, thanks so much for joining us. Welcome to Alliance HQ.
Thank you for having me out to the home office. I typically work from home, so it's nice to get out from Iowa once in a while and see the rest of the country.
Absolutely. We have some planning meetings that we're doing here, some internal meetings at Alliance Group. So Jared was in, and we decided to go ahead and grab a podcast with you while you were here so that you can say hello to all of our agents at Alliance Group. You, Jared, as our new Annuity Marketing Ambassador, you are that go-to guy that we wanted to bring in for everything annuity related, correct? And you have 20 years of experience.
20 years of varied experience, actually. You know, I started out in a family business working with my dad and my sister in San Diego. Mm-hmm. And at that time, I had to find my own niche. My dad was doing the security side. My sister was handling health insurance. And I really, in 04, 05, I kind of was coming into the business and had to figure out a way to make money for the business.
Yeah, right.
And at that time, indexed annuities had only been around for about 10 years.
Right.
And so I had my securities license. I was doing registered products. And once I started really getting involved in the business, learning the products, FIAs, indexed annuities, really connected with me and my investment philosophy. Right. So for me, it was an easy transition. One of my biggest fears in life was public speaking.
Really?
And I forced myself to learn how to do seminars.
Wow.
And I started doing dinner seminars in San Diego for about 5 years before I moved to Des Moines, Iowa. That's what I was doing, and selling life insurance and annuities.
That's something that we really loved about you when we were thinking of bringing you in, is that, you know, you're not a home office guy or a sweater boy, as Mike Wilk from Five Rings Financial calls it, but you're actually somebody who has sold, who has done presentations, who has been in the trenches, and been through what a lot of agents at Alliance Group, go through every day. And bringing that experience to the table is really going to help you, provide value to our agents.
Yeah, I definitely think so. I don't like to typically talk about myself or pat myself on the back, but not only was I in the field selling as a producer, I worked for a home office of one of the largest annuity companies in the country. Mm-hmm. And I was traveling, educating agents on our annuities.
Right.
And I really, at that point and now working in this capacity for Alliance, I really take the side of the producer. Mm-hmm. Because I know how difficult it is to be out there earning a living, worried about, am I going to make a sale? Am I going to make a commission?
Right.
And I really connect with that because I saw what my dad went through, his whole life. He'll be 80 in November and retired about 5 years ago. And I know what it's like to struggle in that way. And it's, running seminars, of course, is really expensive. And writing a piece of business, you send your application in. What's going to happen with suitability?
Right.
And so I kind of coach the agents and advisors on avoiding mistakes that I made.
Right.
So I feel I can bring some value there. And not only that, I also co-founded an insurance marketing or independent marketing organization in Des Moines before I came here. So I've marketed all the competition. Mm-hmm. I know how the companies operate. I know their back offices.
Right.
And I know how important it is to the advisor to work with an insurance company whose service really is a cut above.
Right.
And that can make all the difference to an advisor when you're trying to get a piece of business submitted, issued, and most importantly, paid.
Most importantly, paid. Absolutely. It's that again, all of this experience that you're bringing to the table. It's going to be wonderful for our agents to be able to learn from you, to be able to work with you, and that's going to serve everybody really well at Alliance Group, which is why we're so excited. Obviously, the reason Lee Duncan saw a need to bring somebody in is because the annuity industry is absolutely exploding and has been for the last 2 years now. Historically, Alliance Group, we have been very much a life insurance organization first that sometimes does annuities.
Right.
Over the past 2 years, though, the opportunities are just so explosive. There's so much opportunity out there, and there's so much production being done. Obviously, Alliance Group has set many times over our new production records when it comes to annuity production. I mean, why in your there's several different factors, but in your view, why are annuities such a hot topic and a hot product right now?
Well, again, my opinion, I'm typically a demographics guy.
Yep.
And I tend to, well, my education, I'm an anthropology major. So I tend to look at the world from 30,000 feet.
Right.
And not get too focused on one thing or the other. So I really do look at taking a step back. Let's look at the big picture and figure out what's really going on. And it really, and I've always believed this when I was an independent producer, it's everything that happens in the world, and especially in this industry, is based on demographics.
Right.
Who are the people purchasing these products? The largest generation of baby boomers, now well into their retirement age,
Right.
are looking for safety and security, guarantees, income, peace of mind. And so that's part of it.
Yeah, it is. There's a lot of folks, first of all, in the market where even in a different market, you would still see people looking toward annuities. And there's this biggest generation ever, right? Which, as you said, are getting into their 60s and 70s. And this is when, again, even in a market that wasn't as crazy as it is right now, which we'll talk about in a second, this is when you would see a lot of folks look at taking chips off the table, locking in, income and guarantees and things like that. But it just so happens that this is happening at the same time that a lot of crazy things are happening in the market, right?
Economically, financially,
Inflation.
We've got an election year coming up. We've got what some are talking about, a housing bubble that's about to burst. There's a lot of factors to take into consideration. I think, you think back to what happened, and I was selling and doing seminars back in 05, 06, 07, and then the housing market of 08 hit. And do you remember where people's heads were when that happened? And everybody, acting off of emotion was
Right.
looking for safety and guarantees. And that was those were some big years for annuity
annuities.
producers.
Yeah.
And we're seeing that the last 2 years, every annuity carrier in the country is having the best years of their lives right now. Interest rates also play a factor into that. 20 years ago, caps were 5, 6, 7%. Now we're seeing 12, 13% caps on a lot of products, and
Right.
that's really exciting too.
Yep.
But more importantly, people are looking for a safe place to put their money.
So it's this perfect storm, so to speak. I mean, it's first of all, we talked about the baby boomers, but then all of these things that we've talked about, the economy in general, the volatility, inflation, presidential election coming up, just what's going on in the world, unrest all over the globe, all of these things, what they do is they serve to drive insecurity for people. And if you're sitting on a large pile of savings that you've been saving your whole life for, as insecurity goes up, you start looking for security.
Right.
You start looking for guarantees. You start looking for the things that annuities bring to the table. And it doesn't really matter what you think might happen tomorrow or next week. It's just, I think that a lot of these folks, they don't know what's going to happen coming up, because we've had a pretty crazy, 5, 6, 8 years with just big things happening that send the market, in different directions. And I think a lot of those annuity customers and people that are interested in annuities, they just have this sense of insecurity. They don't know what's going to happen, and that's where we can help, right?
Yeah, and that kind of reminds me, we've been taught, we as in American society have been taught to invest in the market. And that really started in the mid to late 70s when regular everyday people were allowed to put money into a 401k.
Right.
typically the stock market was an area where it was left for those savvy investors, big real estate investors.
Right. Everybody had pensions. You kind of, the market was kind of for the high rollers.
Right. And then in the 70s, they opened it up to the everyday person. And a question I would always ask my clients, how much of those mutual funds and the stocks that you're investing in your 401k, how much do you know about those? Virtually nothing. And we're going on blind faith that, well, they, as in the government, as in Wall Street, who are telling us to, put your money in there because they're making money off of our money.
Right.
But what we don't talk about are the insurance companies that have been around for hundreds of years, have weathered the storms of every economic disaster that the planet has thrown at them.
Yep.
Because of their investment philosophy, they cannot take a lot of risk. And now, in the 70s, we were told, put your money in the market, and that's how we were raised. And now the majority of today's citizens of the United States are boomers looking for a safe place. And for a lot of those people, that safe place is the bank.
Right.
Okay. And a really, really important point I want to make here about annuities, and in particular, indexed annuities. Indexed annuities were not designed to outperform the stock market.
Right.
We've got these products now with 10, 12, 13% caps. That's great. That's great. Never seen it before. Indexed annuities were designed to outperform bank rates. Okay? Outperform inflation.
Right.
And that's really how they should be being sold.
Right.
I talk with advisors all the time. Why do you sell that product over this other product over here? Well, the caps are higher. I get that. And if you've looked at the performance of indexed annuities over the last 20 plus years, you'll see the average performance is between 4 and 6%.
Right. And caps change. They go up, they go down, just like the market, right?
That's right. What I believe really in my soul of how these products should be sold is a portion of your money that's in your 401k or that's in the stocks or in the market, a portion of that money should be kept safe. And if I were talking to a client, I would ask, you've got $500,000 here. All of your assets are tied up in the market. What percentage of this 500,000 would you like to keep safe from loss, potential loss in the market? And that's how I approach indexed annuities. It's not a place where all of your money should be.
Right.
We still have to live, and we're living much longer, especially in this country with medicine and technology. We're living now into our 80s, 90s, and sometimes into 100. So our money has to last longer, and we've got to grow that and make sure we're keeping up with inflation.
Right.
But there's also value in providing peace of mind.
Right.
To our clients.
And the older you get, the more money that you should be. We have a newish video that we put out this year, the buckets video, right? There's that red bucket where it's at risk in the market. There's the blue bucket, which is your index products like index annuities and even index universal life. Then there's your green bucket, which is like your rainy day fund, your emergency savings.
Yep.
As if you're younger, especially, you should be in the market. You should be chasing that upside. Still have some portion of it in safe blue bucket type investments like annuities or IUL. But as we get older, more of that money, you need to be taking more of those, as Steve Walther likes to say, more of those chips off the table, right? And making sure that your entire nest egg isn't at risk of, taking a huge hit, especially right in those crucial years before you actually retire.
Right. Yeah. Growing up in the family business, my dad would preach, you use your age as a barometer. And you typically age 100, which we, may very well live to. And the older you get, the more money you put safe. So if you're 65 years old, 65% of your assets should be kept in a safe place that you cannot lose because you don't have enough time to make up for the losses in the market. And I've seen several times where, you know, a client's assets are 100% in their 401k because that's what we've always been told to do.
Right. Yep.
Invest in your 401k. If there's a match, it's free money. Mm-hmm. But then we have another major market catastrophe. Just 2 weeks ago, we've had a big dip in the market.
Yep.
I had a case I was working on. The client had $700,000 in their 401k, and they're getting ready to retire. And by the time we actually were able to move the money, there was $529,000 left in his 401k. And now he says, well, now I have to keep it in there to make up for those losses.
Right.
Well, how long do you have to wait? And how long do you have to still continue to work?
Right. And also, yes, it could come back, but it also could go down further.
That's right. So that's where we say, how much of these assets are you comfortable losing? Mm-hmm. Typically, the answer is none.
Right.
Well, that's not always an option. So we're able to move, in this case, we're able to move some of the money.
Right. It's all about, again, it's about that security. It's about, you know, as you get older, being smart and safeguarding some of those. And by the way, you know, safe, but also still growing, right? It's not that, you know, annuities, it's not putting your money in the mattress. You have really good potential to actually grow your money in these products that we're representing.
Absolutely. You know, we sometimes use the word with indexed annuities. We use the phrase market-like returns. Mm-hmm. And I've seen returns on indexed annuities at 30% on a particular index.
Wow.
That's great. It's not going to happen every day. Just like the market. It's going to go up. It's going to change. We don't know where it's going to go. Mm-hmm. But boy, it sure is nice to know that when you go to sleep tonight and you wake up tomorrow morning, you know your money is still going to be there and it hasn't gone down.
It hasn't gone down. That's what it's all about. So there's these huge opportunities out there with annuities. We've got more and more agents that are starting to produce annuities because you know, a lot of agents at Alliance Group, they consider themselves life insurance people, and annuities were kind of this other thing that, yeah, they saw some trainings on them, but really they just wanted to keep the main thing, focus on things like term and IUL and you know, all of the things we derive from the life insurance side. But really, it's about making hay while the sun is shining, and a ton of our agents are doing that, which is why we're having this big growth in our annuity business, which is why you're coming aboard. For those agents out there who might still kind of be in that position of, I'm not really familiar with annuities. I know it's a big opportunity, but I'm just going to keep focusing on my life business. It doesn't have to be either or, right?
Absolutely
it absolutely can and should be both, right?
You're likely leaving money on the table if you're not asking questions to your life insurance customers.
Right.
Hey, do you have an old 401k or an old annuity, an IRA?
Sitting around.
Mm-hmm. Do you have a CD? For instance, in the bank that you've been getting your 3-4% on and paying taxes on year over year, but you like that liquidity feature, you know, right. There are opportunities within the annuity side to capture some of these assets. Because if you're not, I guarantee you some other agent is going to be talking to your client about
It's true
about money.
You know, Jack, and it's not just that. It's not just idle money, you know, or money that's sitting in a CD. In some cases, there's people out there who are feeling, as we're talking about, very insecure about what's going on in the market. They're logging in and they're watching their their nest egg, their retirement jump 50,000 and down 75 and up, you know, and it creates that insecurity. So in many cases, for example, you were on stage with Jack Waldron. You had a great annuity panel at our Alliance Academy event in Denver last week. And one thing that Jack Waldron said that I kind of jotted down was, he said he asks his clients what they're doing for retirement, and then he asks them how they feel about it. You know, and they answer, you know, I've got money in a 401k, I've got money in mutual funds. You know, I've saved, you know, $700,000. And he's always like, great. How do you feel about that? And he lets them answer because
you just need to shut up and let them talk.
The way that people feel right now sometimes about their money in the market, sometimes just asking that question, how do they feel about it emotionally, that might lead to an opportunity, right?
That's a great question, because when you start having a conversation about feelings and emotions, you connect with that person in a different way versus what do you think?
Right.
And it's funny, I happen to use this strategy with my own children.
Right.
Instead of asking, how was your day? Or, what are you thinking? I ask, how do you feel about that? Or how did that make you feel?
Yeah.
And really, I think as a customer or client, you start asking yourself, well, geez, I never thought about money and how do I feel about money?
Right.
And it helps you as an agent connect with that person, and that lays the foundation to a great client-agent relationship.
Right.
Because they feel like you really care. And again, most importantly, sit back and listen to how they feel. Because a lot of people don't like to talk about their feelings.
Yep.
And when they do, it generates a connection with that person that they're sharing that intimacy with.
Absolutely. So for some of these agents who maybe aren't asking those simple questions and maybe want to know, what are some of those simple conversation starters? Let's say that I've sold somebody a life insurance policy, and or I've just finished writing an app on for a life insurance policy for a client. What are some of those just very simple follow-up questions that you can ask to maybe uncover an additional annuity opportunity?
Yeah, great question. So I'll preface this with, typically when I'm meeting with a client, I will, when talking about indexed annuities, I will mention to them, look, what I provide are 4 things: safety, guarantees, income, and peace of mind. And if those things sound good to you, then we can continue to have a conversation. Right. But if they're not interested and they want to take a lot of risk in the market, I will tell them, I'm probably not the right fit for you.
Right.
Okay. So I like to preface, before we get into the asking questions, I want to, kind of lay the foundation of how I start off.
And safety, guarantees, income, and peace of mind.
Peace of mind.
Excellent.
And that really simplifies the whole indexed annuity conversation. Instead of getting into the weeds on indexing.
So talking about getting into the weeds, you've said this before. I heard you saying that you were talking to a group of agents in Denver, and you seem to believe that a lot of agents kind of overcomplicate the sales process when it comes to annuities. If you just keep it as simple as that, annuities do these 4 things, and I can do that for you. You don't need to get kind of talk us through that. You think sometimes agents spend too much time talking about features and caps and rates and things like that.
There's plenty of us agents out there that have a bit of an ego, and we like to show how smart we are by talking about all the things we know about how this annuity works.
And it might not even be an ego. It might be like a nervous tick sort of thing for a new agent. Like I have to show them how much I know.
Over-explain.
Right.
Because you're nervous that what I'm saying isn't going to be enough to get the sale. But when you sit back and have a true conversation and ask the questions like, how does that make you feel? Or what is this money for? How would you feel if we lost 50% of this money? How would that make you feel? Where did this money come from? Sometimes these old annuities, to kind of take it even a step further back, a lot of money in IRAs is typically passed off to either a spouse or a child, and they're not even spent. The money out of those, especially out of IRAs, because they're taxable dollars. So the majority of IRA money is passed on and not ever taken as income.
Wow.
Okay. So asking the question, where did this money come from? What do you want it to do for you? Do you want to pass it on to your children, to your spouse, to a charity? Do you feel strongly about your church? There's ways to pass on a lot of these qualified assets in a non-taxable way. Do you want this money for long-term care expenses? asking those questions. And I think I got off track here because you had asked me a question and now I forgot what it was.
No, it's okay. It's okay. It's good. I think the original question was, what are some of those questions that you can ask that will uncover opportunities?
What would you like this money to do for you? Mm-hmm. Would you like this money for income in retirement? Would you like this money for accumulation, just to grow? Because you're never going to use it.
Right.
And maybe you just want to accumulate wealth and pass it on. That's really what helps me when I'm helping agents with Alliance Group. Mm-hmm. When I'm trying to determine which product to use, when a agent calls or uses my fact finder and they send it in, the most important thing I need to know is, what are we trying to accomplish here? What does the client need?
Right.
What does the client need? Do they need income or do they just want accumulation? Mm-hmm. And that will help me determine, are we going to choose an indexed annuity with an income rider? Mm-hmm. Is it important to have access to more than 10% penalty free?
Right.
How important are the long-term care or income doublers and some of those living benefits, if you will, inside of an indexed annuity? Mm-hmm. So there are withdrawal features in these annuities that you can have access to without paying a penalty. So oftentimes that's important. I worked on a case yesterday where they don't have much money, but the client has cancer. And doesn't know if they're going to need it, when they're going to need it, but they're afraid that I'm probably going to need this at some point in the future. Right. And I was able to find a product that had a critical illness rider or a terminal illness that allowed them to withdraw 100% of their assets out of the annuity without penalty, paying the surrender charge.
Oh, wow. It's, and this is where it does kind of get into, at some point when it's time to diagnose which product at our carriers would be best for a certain client based on their needs and their age and their story and what it is that they're looking for. There does come like a diagnosis phase, and I think that might be another thing that gives agents pause for getting into the annuity space and for dipping into this opportunity is that we've already talked about how they might just have their blinders on for life insurance, but second of all, they might just not feel comfortable that they know which product is the best to put a client with, and they don't feel trained. But that is really where you come in, Jared. You actually have a questionnaire that you have created where agents can basically fill out this questionnaire for you that gives you all the information that you need. They can walk the client through it, answer all the questions, treat it as like a fact finder, and then they can send that off to you, and that's where you can really get all the information you need to really help them put that client with the right product that is going to help them, and then even walk them through, the sales process, and even be part of a conversation if you need to be.
Absolutely. One of the great things, the tools that I have at my disposal with Alliance Group is I have the unique ability to shop every company, every product, all the details of every competitive product out there. So when I receive a fact finder from an agent or I get a phone call and they're like, hey, I got a 68-year-old with $200,000. They have a terminal illness. They don't know if they're going to need the money or not. What I do is I do the dirty work. Right. I'm out there shopping around looking for the absolute best product. And I really do mean that. I look for, because I know I've been in the shoes of an agent.
Right.
You always want to do the right thing. And it's hard to know if, when you ask for advice, if you're getting good advice. Right. And is this really the best product?
Right.
And I take a lot of pride in my word in general, but especially in this business. I do my due diligence and I do my shopping and I find out everything I need to know so that I know the information I'm giving to that agent, they can pass on and stand behind their word when they say, yes, this is you will guaranteed get X amount of income in 5 years, or yes, it's in writing. There is a critical illness rider on here that you have access to 100% of your money if you have a critical illness or cannot perform 2 of 6 ADLs.
Yep.
You know, those are really important. And I think oftentimes those little things are overlooked.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because we just want high caps or a big bonus. And those are exciting things to talk about. But back to your question on getting into the weeds and some of those things to circle back. Look, again, indexed annuities are designed to perform between 4 and 6%, provide safety, guarantees, income, peace of mind. Caps are going to be caps. They're going to go up. They're going to go down. And that's why it truly is important to know who the company or the carrier is whose product is on paper that you're offering to your clients.
There are some B carriers out there with some really great caps, right? But caps are temporary. Just because you buy this cap today, it does not mean that cap's gonna stick around, or that's how the policy is going to perform, going forward. Caps are very temporary. So what you're kind of getting at there, it does matter, the rating of the company, the reputation of the company, and the track record of that company for doing the right thing.
Renewal rate integrity is the phrase I use quite often with agents when they ask, why would I write this product versus that product? And I'll be able to tell you exactly why. And usually I start from the view from 30,000 feet and I work it down. So let's take a look first at the company. Let's talk about the interest rate integrity, the product history. Believe it or not, the service of some of these companies. How many of you have been on hold or have waited 2 days to get a response back from an insurance company on a kind of a simple question they should be able to answer? That's taking away from the agent's time.
And the customer experience.
Right. So, again, we look at the investment philosophy of the insurance company. And what I can tell you from my time in the industry, most A-rated companies will design a product and price a product to maintain the issue rates and caps throughout the duration of that policy. And how do you find out if a company is doing that? And I just went through this yesterday with an agent who called me and questioned me on why did I recommend this particular company over another? And I said, well, here's why. And I said, I want you to log in, get online with me on the carrier website, and we're going to go in the search panel, type in renewal rate history or interest rate history. And I was able to, we're on a Zoom call, and I said, can you see my screen? And we showed the entire history of this product from 2011, from 2011 through today. We were able to look at the issue rate and the renewal rate on that product for the last 13 years. Zero change. I said, that should make you feel warm and fuzzy. Knowing that when you issue this policy, these are the expectations your client has.
That is the whole point of the security part of the annuities, right? Is like, it doesn't matter what the market is doing, what these outside influences and pressures are doing. This product's staying like this, which is what you want with annuities, right? You don't want to buy a carrier that has high caps now. The caps will go through the floor later, then they'll go back up. That is the opposite of predictability, security, stability, what people are looking for in their annuities.
That's right. And I can tell you from personal experience, when I first got in the industry and started selling annuities, I found a new company. Had only been around a year or two, and their rates were awesome. And I was so excited. I was like, oh, I get a big bonus, and that's easy to sell, and these caps and pars are great. And 2 years later, we had getting close to 08, and this company dropped renewal rates on every one of my policies And I had to have some really uncomfortable conversations with my clients. And that was my education.
Say, I'll never let that happen again.
I won't let that happen to our alliance agents. I've been there, and I don't want them to have that conversation.
Right.
So we want to look at, hey, does this insurance company post their renewal rates on their website? That most people aren't asking that question. Right. Yeah. You know, and a lot of these new carriers, new products are looking, you know, especially if it's a new insurance company, are looking for capital. They're looking for an influx of money. So they're going to make really attractive products because they want to get their rating from B to an A. And the way you do that is with assets.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And that's also you attract new business and these agents who chase the shiny, you know, the shiny rates and caps and things like that.
Right.
It's a fascinating discussion, and luckily we do have fantastic carriers with long histories and A ratings at Alliance Group. So you know, for any agents watching right now, you should feel great that Jared is now a part of the team. We finally have that person, that one person you can go to. Jared, before you might go to somebody at this company or somebody at this company to try to get, you know, advice. And of course, those people, I'm not saying anything bad about them, but they are not going to tell you to go sell the other company because it's better. They are going to, of course, bring you in. But having you as somebody who is kind of this general arbiter of all the annuities that we have access to and can look at them from an objective standpoint and guide them in the direction of what's best for the client, being completely knowledgeable about how those products work. It's something that is awesome for our agents to have access to now. And it's so awesome to welcome you to the team, and I know that you're going to provide so much value for our agents.
I'm looking forward to it, and I'm really excited. You know, I see a lot of opportunity here to work with some great agents, and those of you that don't have a lot of experience and might be a little timid or afraid to sell your first annuity, I can tell you I've been spending a lot of time on the phone with agents, coaching them, mentoring them on the sales process, how to present the annuity, how to have the conversation, and even as far as getting on the phone with the client while they're on their appointment, I'm on the phone and able to provide a little bit of expertise and clarity.
Absolutely.
But my goal is to make Alliance agents very comfortable with what these products are, setting the right expectations on what they are.
Right.
If you're chasing rates, you know, and I have this conversation all the time, oh, well, this company has these that's great. If you're chasing rates, maybe go back to the market.
Right.
And I know you want to do what's best for your client, but the expectation is they should be expecting 4 to 6% return.
Right.
You know, a year of 10% is great. You know, can we get 0.5% more or 1% more with this B-rated carrier? Possibly, sure. But during the long term, longevity, yeah, and you know, you want that relationship with your client to be as easy as possible.
Absolutely, and you can definitely help there. So, Jared, how would an agent who wants to, first of all, introduce themselves to you are still meeting all of our agents. You've been with us a couple of months. You've had an opportunity to meet a few agents in person, many more over the phone, but you're still meeting people. So someone who wanted to introduce themselves to you, or maybe had a question about annuities, or you know, wants to get to know you better, how would people get in touch with Jared Weiss?
The best way is through email, and ask. And this has been happening, so I'm glad you brought this up.
Right.
Jared, is there a good time that we can get together on a phone or a Zoom call and you can explain XYZ to me?
And then you can,
and then we'll schedule a time together and put it on the calendar. And that way I am uninterrupted. I really like to take my time.
Focus work,
and focus, undivided attention. I don't take phone calls when I'm on a Zoom. I'm very, you know, I like to be very thorough.
Absolutely.
In that time. So do you want to give my email?
Yeah, so Jared at alliancegrouplife.com. We'll make sure that goes on the bottom of the screen. You can reach out to Jared Weiss, our new annuity marketing ambassador at Alliance Group. Again, Jared at alliancegrouplife.com. Reach out, say hi, ask him your annuity questions. He is here to help and to serve all Alliance Group agents. And Jared, one more time, welcome to the team, my friend. It is fantastic to have you aboard, and thanks for joining us for the Alliance Group podcast.
Thank you, and glad to be here, and I look forward to working with all of you agents out there in the field.
Listen to this interview and more on the Alliance Group podcast.